You're listening to The Other 50%, a herstory of Hollywood. I'm Julie Harris Walker. This is the podcast where I talk to successful women in entertainment and hear their stories. Our presenting sponsor is the entertainment payroll company Extreme Reach. What you may not know about Extreme Reach is that they are already an industry disruptor in the areas of creative asset management and video ad distribution. And now they're poised to disrupt the entertainment payroll business. If you're creating content, call them and tell them I sent you. Today I got to speak with T.L. Quach. T.L. is an independent filmmaker now based in LA after studying film studies at UC Berkeley and working in production on major TV and films in New York City. Her short films have been all over the festival circuit, and her short film Rule of Threes won an Award of Merit for Women Filmmakers at the Accolade Global Film Competition and an Award of Merit at the One Reeler Film Competition. She is currently developing a new screenplay and also producing her first screenplay, Crave, into a feature film, which she will tell us all about. You can find us at theother50%.com for added features, photos, show notes, and the merchandise. You can also listen on Apple Podcasts and all the podcast places. Also, the Insider's Guide to Breaking Into and Navigating Hollywood, called Catch a Break, has launched, and it is available on Apple Podcasts, all the podcast places, and on the website, catchabreakpodcast.com. Go check that one out, too. Okay, here's my conversation with T.L. Quach. Have a listen. What do you do?
I'm a writer and director of psychological thrillers and intense dramas.
Nice.
Yeah.
Are you working on a film right now?
So I'm in the process of developing, producing, and directing my first feature film. I wrote this script a while back, and mostly in the mind of having it being a micro budget, because I figured like for the first feature I'll ever do, it should be small and manageable. So maybe like, they say that, don't use your own money, but well, at a certain point, maybe you might have to.
Yeah.
At least it's something that is basically manageable. So I wrote this script about basically in one location. They always say one location, a few characters kind of thing. And I was in New York City, and I was kind of snowed in, and I was like, what should I write about? And I was like, well, I feel like I'm locked up in this room because of the snow. And I was like, immediately thought about a kidnapping situation.
Ooh.
Yeah. So yeah, I wrote my first script, it's Crave, and it's about Stockholm Syndrome. It's about a teenage girl who gets locked in a motel room, and there's an implied deal with the kidnapper that she must sleep with him for food. At first, she doesn't want to do it, and she befriends a neighboring captive that lives on the other side of the wall, and she communicates with her through the wall, and they together they plan to escape. But once she meets the kidnapper and how he's kind, he's really handsome, and he just has really good hospitality with her. She kind of slowly falls in love with him. She's also a teenager. She's curious about sexuality and such like that. And so
I love how you said he had good hospitality.
Yeah, oddly enough. But yeah, and then she slowly falls for him, but then it causes the neighboring captive to be jealous, and it's because she's also suffering through Stockholm Syndrome. Because it's not only about it's about getting attention from him to also survive as well.
Is it the same guy?
Same guy.
Oh, yeah, he's running a whole ring in this motel?
Yeah. Well, maybe not a whole ring, but it's just
At
two of
least
them.
Two.
Yes,
Yeah.
two of them. Yeah. So.
Man.
Yeah.
That's intriguing.
Oh.
Okay, let's go back to the beginning. How
Sure.
did you know you wanted to do this?
So growing up, I liked a lot of films and a lot of movies. I enjoyed the fact that when you go watch a movie, your life suddenly changes a little bit after watching the movie. I remember right before seeing Jurassic Park, and I was like, oh man, my life is going to change right after I watch this movie.
It'll never be the same.
It'll never be the same. And then the emotional thrill that comes with it and everything, and then it just sticks with you and stuff like that. And that thrill, that's what made me really enjoy movies a lot. I guess what made me want to be in film in general was initially I liked being a storyteller. I like writing. I remember writing at night, with the lamp on or something in the middle of the night, and not have my parents know that I wanted to be an artist or write or anything like that.
You were writing for fun, not
I was writing
for school.
Yeah, I was writing for fun. I was, I actually initially wanted to be a novelist or something like that, or write for video games or something like that. I guess I had a lot of crazy ideas. I loved video games back then. And then eventually I watched this movie called About Schmidt. Mm-hmm. And I remember in the end of the movie, the moment where Jack Nicholson starts crying, I started crying too. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then the power of emotional connection through film is pretty amazing. Yeah. So I wanted to, I guess, emulate that in a way.
Like, I want a part of that.
Yeah, I want to be part of that.
Yeah.
There's also this quote from Walt Disney, and he basically says, "I would rather entertain and hope that people will learn something than to educate people and hope they were entertained." And I felt that was very powerful in a way that basically through film and entertainment, that spreads it reaches more people, it creates more empathy, and basically changing the world in a way, Yeah.
So, someone said to me the other day, if you can make them laugh, then they're open and then you can get them. They said it better. But like, you can get to the emotional truth.
Yeah.
By what you just said, by entertaining.
Yeah. Because I guess, like if through entertainment, people become a little more vulnerable in a way, and then they are open to share and and connect better that way. And because no matter how whatever we see on screen, no matter how fiction it is, it's all based on true emotions, and it's written by people, made by people,
right,
based off true emotions. So it's to connect in that way is very powerful. And
so you knew you wanted to do that.
Yeah.
So then, did you go to college?
I did. I went to UC Berkeley and studied film theory. And I actually, at first I wanted to do dramas, and then I oddly fell in love with psychological thrillers from classes that I was learning, because it challenges a lot of morals and perspectives, really, something Memento. You go in as you think it's kind of like a heist movie or something like that, or a violent movie. Yeah, it is a violent movie. But you go in and it's a thriller, and it's all about the action and stuff like that. But it's also it has a hidden message about trust and memory and how you even trust yourself, and that you leave with questioning about your realities and stuff like that.
Isn't that the movie that was backwards?
Yeah. It was backwards and forwards at the same time, and but he puts tattoos on himself so he can remember things. Yeah. But at one point, spoiler alert, he tattooed something wrong, or something that to lie to himself, where it led him to basically kill the guy who's had all the truths. Stuff like that. It makes you walk out and think about that kind of sticks with you for a while. It sticks with you, yeah.
So were you that's my jam, I want to do that genre?
Yeah. I guess the one movie that really I really was inspired by was Kira by Kiyoshi Kurosawa, which no one has ever watched, or it's actually out of print now. But that one's about a detective trying to figure out these series of murders that are all they're all linked in a way where the victims have X's on their throats, and it's a very terrifying movie. But but he goes around. It leads to a guy who. This guy's been hypnotizing people to kill other people, because he believes that he's doing a good thing, where he's telling them to release their angers, release their frustrations and stuff like that. So one example is that he hypnotizes a doctor who he knew that she was suffering through sexism or something, because she's a doctor, and men don't trust her and stuff like that. So he tried to rile her up in a way of telling her this stuff, and then she kind of unleashes her
rage,
inner rage, and she goes kills the guy, right? And puts an X in his throat. And
so he's a serial killer, but he doesn't actually have to kill anybody, because he gets everyone else to kill everybody.
Yeah. In a way, he's a serial hypnotizer. So, but his mission was to make people unleash their angers and feel empty, or feel relieved. It's he feels like he's the therapist in a way.
So he thinks he's doing good deeds.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it made me, that again with the challenging of morals and stuff like that. It's what in a way he thinks he's doing good deeds, is basically helping these people relieve themselves from all their stresses. Right. But in the
and if that's where all it was, they would be.
Everybody's dead.
Crazy.
So at first I was really terrified of the movie, and then I kept thinking about it, and I was just wow, that's a great movie. Or it just it makes you really think how do you handle your stresses, or it stuck to me a lot. And I was you know what, I want to make movies that actually emotionally stick with you to the end. It's not more than just an interesting story that just happens, or stuff happens. It's
right, but it bugs you for days afterwards.
Yes.
So did you start writing then in that genre?
I did. So when I was in New York, I was snowed in. I was actually just moved there. I never experienced winter before. I'm from the north, or at least that kind of winter.
Okay, wait. Let's back up for a second first. Why did you move to New York?
Oh, okay. So I moved to New York because during that time, when I graduated, LA wasn't doing so well at the time. It was like there's no tax incentive, and New York had like some tax incentives to basically promote filming. Like I think it was like 30%. Paying.
So there's tons of production there.
There's tons of production there, and I was like, I'm gonna work on like I can't afford film school. I'm gonna work on set, you know. And like sure enough, you know, in New York,
which is actually a great way to go.
Yeah. I don't regret, like for the most part, like doing all those PA days and learning it all the hard way, you know. But like the two things that I really valued was my education in UC Berkeley, because it was like it's very theory focused, and I feel to be a writer, director, or even creative producer, it's like all that knowledge is like very priceless. Because even when I went to worked on set, like there were some film jokes that I kind of threw around to my coworkers, and they had no idea what I was talking about, and I was like, oh god, I hope it didn't, you know.
No, that's a factory. By the time you're on set,
it is a factory.
You're in a factory.
Yeah, so it's like. And they're there just to have a paycheck, unfortunately, or half of them. Others had, you know, other aspirations and whatnot in it. But it's just like, it's like you could eventually learn everything on set when you're on set. Like you'll learn as you go. But like in terms of film theory and studying,
it's a whole different thing.
Yeah. So after college, I decided to move to New York, and I guess my first job, I basically worked on like student films, like I just went on Craigslist and just kind of looked up like PA jobs and stuff like that, and then one thing led to another, and then eventually I got into work into like the major film and television shows. And
like what'd you work on?
So the most famous one is the first season of House of Cards.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I got some emails about that like years later.
That first season was great.
Yeah, Elementary season 1 I worked on. A bunch of other shows that no one has ever heard of. So yeah, the movies I worked on was like Going in Style and The Book of Henry. The first movie I worked on was The Late Quartet with Philip Seymour Hoffman, Catherine Keener, and Christopher Walken. I was an intern there, and that was like my first winter as an intern, and I did not know how to dress for winter. So that was fun. I shoveled snow for the first time.
So you were working outside and weren't
getting paid either.
And for free.
Yeah, and for free.
Perfect.
Yeah, so yeah. You
learned a lot on those jobs.
I did, yeah. Especially how to dress better for winter.
Number 1, boots.
Yes. Layers. And number 2, layers. Yeah.
And a good coat.
Yeah. I eventually worked on like a bunch of shows for like on and off 6 years really. And I decided like I can't work like this anymore because it's like 16-hour days, like harsh weather. Yeah. And like,
were you doing PA jobs the whole time, or did you get like into the office or into production department? What were you doing?
Mostly PA, was on-set PA work. I used to want to work in camera and like be a camera assistant, and then I realized I don't want to lift those things in that weather. Like the lenses just get bigger and bigger. Yeah. There was one case that was this, like when you like turn it to the side, it's like tall as me, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. Yeah. So I moved on to regular production and PA'd for a while. I was thinking about being an AD, and then like after a while, I was like, even if I become an AD, like I just don't want to work those hours. I don't want to like worry about a van pickup like that Sunday before that will be at like the pickup will being like at 4 a.m. in the morning or something like that, when I ultimately want to write and direct.
Right.
Yeah. And it's just like that, to work at like 80-hour weeks or something like that.
It makes it real hard to write.
It does. Yes. It makes it really hard to write or even just take care of myself, and figure things out. So.
All right. Good for you. Yeah. I like it when people take a stand for I'm going to do my thing and not be sucked into this other survival thing that could distract you for 20 years.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends too who had all these aspirations starting out, and then like after a while they're like, oh my god, I'm like 30 now and like I don't know what else to do with my life, and I just only know how to PA and AD and stuff like that, and I'm like, oh god, like follow your dreams, but they don't remember it, and I was like, oh my god,
it's hard.
Yeah, and especially with a PA rate, we're like working minimum wage half the time, so it's like...
So it's not like you can save up a year's worth of salary to just go and write.
Yeah, so then people...
All right, so what did you do?
So I moved on to office management. Yeah, because having a 9-to-5 is like so beautiful now after all those years of freelancing and I jumped a bunch of things. I actually went after being a PA, I actually worked in post for a bit because the position I had was like only 8 hours and stuff. It was in client services, and I learned a lot within the few months that I worked there. It was like in a coloring house, and just seeing because I've been on set for so long, I only knew what's happened there, but then I see all the leftovers. Yeah, all the leftovers, and like how everyone they have to fix everything, and there's like real hard deadlines because they want to premiere a movie within the next week or something like that, or they have to take things back and then put it back into the theaters or something like that. So that's fun.
So that whole phrase "fix it in post" that's really what's happening.
Yeah, and you see it and you're like, oh wow, that really sucks. So don't fix it in post.
Do it right the first time.
Yeah, do it right the first time if you can, because
that'll be helpful when you're directing.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then I dabbled I worked in a startup as an associate producer. It was a multi-channel network, and then I figured I was thinking about doing new media, and I like those food videos or some of those food recipe videos that you see on Facebook and stuff. I was thinking about doing that, and I realized how those can be kind of isolating because sometimes it's only one man or one woman band kind of thing doing everything. And I liked filmmaking because of the collaboration aspects of it. So I was like, all right, I really need a really low stress job that is still related to my skill sets. And being in office management is an eighth of a work of being on a production coordinator or something.
It's like a vacation job.
Yeah, it's just hey, okay, there's coffee. People are just happy. All right, cool. And then there's a party. Okay, I'll set up a party. And, and it'll be all in pretty much contained. It's not in a location remotely, hours away. But yeah, during that time of me transitioning, I did also worked as a production coordinator, I worked in the office as an office PA. I learned a lot from that too. So I kind of dabbled within production a lot. So that was all a great learning experience. And during that time as well, right before I had my first office job, I shot my short film, Rule of Threes.
Oh, good. That was my next question.
Okay. Yeah, so Rule of Threes is a post-apocalyptic short film about 3 friends who are trying to figure out what to do next after they sacrifice their leader. And so very, very stressful environment.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
So after the apocalypse?
After the apocalypse, they're on a journey, the cross-country journey, trying to go home. At one point, they had to decide what to do next when they have no resources, and they did play a Russian roulette. In the beginning of the film, they did have a Russian roulette thing going on, and it led to their mentor, and then he goes away, and he's basically used and sacrificed as food.
I was gonna say
them.
they eat him.
Yeah, they eat him. I don't show it obviously, but it's implied. And then,
after the apocalypse, we're desperate. You gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah, and then a few months later, they're running out of resources again, and then they have to figure out what to do next. And they don't want to repeat the same mistake, so it's just.
And it's down to 2 of them.
Down to 3 of them. So it was 4, and then now it's down to 3.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So they're looking at each other like, is it you? Or is it me?
No, it's a little more complicated than that.
All right, so what did you go through to shoot that short? Did you fund it yourself? Did you crowdfund?
I crowdfunded it. Yeah, I used the Indiegogo campaign, and then I partially, personally funded it too. I pulled a lot of strings. Mm-hmm. My cinematography teacher actually volunteered to help me shoot it.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and then in the post house that I worked at, an assistant colorist was like, I need more stuff on my reel, so he helped out too. So yeah.
Did you do this in New York?
I did this all in New York. That's kind of the reason why I stayed a little bit longer than I wanted to. I had a 5-year plan, and towards that 5th year, something about it was just I think I need to stay a little longer. And then it was okay, I just have this script and I want to shoot it, and I feel like I only could do it in New York while I have this network.
All those resources.
Yeah, exactly. So I shot it, and then we edited and finished it. But and then by the time we finished this, I submitted to film festivals. All the stars lined up where it's just my lease is up, my contract with my office management job is coming up, and I was like, oh, the stars are lying that New York doesn't want me anymore. And it was also since I am from California originally, I was well, I should be closer to family. I had my grandpa passed away actually right after the shoot of my short film, and I was like, oh, I should be closer to family. And I have other grandparents too, so it's just kind of I think one of the 10 reasons is okay, I should go home. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so then you moved to LA.
Yeah, and I moved to LA, so I'm here.
Welcome.
Yeah.
So now you're getting ready to shoot your feature.
I wouldn't say ready just yet, but I am.
You're developing your feature.
Yes. I think another reason why I decided to move to LA is because when I was in New York, I felt that most of my network was crew members or crew members who wanted to be directors or producers and stuff like that. But I never found someone who was solely a producer or so worked in development or anything. So and also half of them are struggling to survive, and they can keep sticking to their day jobs of being the crew member to pay for their rent, and then they're focusing on their own stuff. And so I never felt like I knew what to do next in terms of trying to make my feature. And so I was and a lot of my friends went to Berkeley, they graduated USC and film school, so I wanted to pick their brains.
How have you found LA as far as networking and finding your people and finding resources, things like that? How has that been?
It's been very eventful. I luckily have a lot of friends who are graduates from USC, so
Handy.
So I connected with them, talked to them what they're doing and all that stuff. I think just practicing in New York of going to networking events there, just kind of made me a little more, I guess, aggressive, or here where I'm just kind of all right, I'm just gonna go to every party as much as I can, and just kind of meet people and see where it goes, and cold emailing people and stuff like that. And I feel like I met a lot more producers or people who are even film students who are, about to be producers or directors and stuff like that. And that's just been very, very helpful because I'm in the same boat with them versus in New York where we're all crew members. Yes, we were, half of us were trying to be creative and whatnot, but also half of us are just struggling to survive being working those 80 hours again.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
Are you joining all the groups and all that?
Not necessarily all the groups, but I did join Alliance of Women Directors, which I found very great. They're such a collaborative group. Yeah, and they're also supportive of each other and everything. I was like, wow, this is kind of amazing. Because it's because you hear all these stories about everyone's kind of watching out for themselves and all that stuff. And no, everybody there is very they're all trying to help each other out. Yeah, and out of good heart,
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
What do you kind of make of kind of what has happened with women in the business the last couple of years?
At least in terms of directing, I feel like we are going through a revolution, and that's really great. I watched You Were Never Really There by Lim Ramsey, and I was appalled by her directing style. And I'm actually really upset that she is not nominated in Oscars because it's very unique in a way. Well, it's a thriller. It's supposed to be Taxi Driver, but different, obviously. But the way she shot it was more. It's a lot of mystery. The way she shot it, there's not a lot of dialogue in it. So.
No, wait. You said you were appalled by her directing style.
Yeah.
In that you loved it, or
yes.
you were mad at it?
No, yeah, I loved it.
Okay.
Yeah, I really loved her directing style because a lot of it, even though there's not a lot of dialogue, there's just a lot of mystery in it, and it shows through her shots and the way she edited. Again, I'm appalled that I'm upset at the Oscars for not even recognizing that.
How did they miss that?
Yeah, but
they missed all the women. So
yeah, right. Yeah. But there is. I think that last year was really the most movies I've seen that made by women that are within that same genre, and so I think we're pushing it for sure.
Yeah.
We'll just guess it'll take a little more time.
Like everything, but it's important to keep pushing it because when you think thriller genre. I mean, how many women have done that? I got to think it's hard for women to get a green light in that.
Yeah.
Because it seems like when women do get the green light, it's because it's a rom-com or because it's a female movie.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not a lot of women in thrillers. And because you just assume even in horrors too, you just assume it's a guy or something. They could all come up with all these scary ideas. No, women can. And I think one of the missions that I want to do too is highlight women's fears. Because with the Crave, I developed it in a way thinking about this class I took in Berkeley, domestic violence law, because I was supposed to be a lawyer. My parents wanted me to be a lawyer.
You were supposed to be a lawyer.
Yeah, my parents wanted me to be a lawyer, and I basically double majored in legal studies, and I just kind of took these random classes, and one of them was domestic violence law, and I found it very interesting because it wasn't only about the law, but it was also about the psychology behind these cases. And it's tragic and sad that it's very common, domestic violence, whether it's verbal abuse or physical abuse. Like, it happens to all races, all classes, you know. It happens to men too, but it's just sadly very common. And it's something like Stockholm Syndrome. You kind of think like, oh, it's like a special case kind of thing, you know, but when women all over experience a little bit of that, you know, from our culture, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I wanted to like modernize and normalize that I guess experience within the extreme case of like a film, because like a film, obviously the stakes are, you know, you have to like rise the stakes so high and stuff like that. But like within the dialogue in Crave, like I try to make it like similar to like a regular relationship, you know, or as in like, yeah, it's a teenager and like a young man. He like probably in his 30s, you know, so.
Because it is fascinating, especially when young girls get in those relationships, and then it is so hard to get out.
Yeah.
And they still love him.
Yeah.
And we all know it can end very, very badly.
Yeah.
And most of the time, if, you know, a man kills his wife or something, there's always a history of domestic abuse.
Yeah.
That was ignored or swept under the rug, or, you know, she was told to keep her family together. You know, whatever the thing is, it seems like such a thick onion for us to unravel.
Yeah, there's a million reasons. Yeah, well, there's culture. It's like, oh yeah, like you have to have, you know, it's better to have a husband than no husband, or a dad and no dad.
Better to have a bad husband than no husband.
Yeah, or yeah, exactly. You know, and like there's no such thing as divorce or something.
Yeah.
Or maybe it is survival, where it's like, you know, if this woman was.
Or it's more dangerous to leave.
Yeah, more dangerous to leave, and. Yeah, but, you know, there's some women who are like, okay, maybe they were taught to, like, you know, you stay at home kind of thing. You have to, you know, take care of the kids so you don't get a job and stuff like that. And she's in this environment. But then if she does leave, it's like, what does she do? Like, how can she survive in the way when she feels like she has no, like work skill sets or whatnot, you know? And so, like, yeah, I wanted to tell a similar story in that in a more extreme sense, but with with many reasons, like why would you stay or why would you fall for? Because
you also hear so many times, well, why didn't you just leave?
Exactly.
And there's so much more to it.
Yeah. And another thing with like young girls too, sometimes, or even adults sometimes too, is just kind of like maybe we don't even know what love is because maybe we're taught wrong too, you know, or we're figuring that out as we're going, but it ends up being like, you know.
Well, we do still tell little girls he's hitting you because he likes you.
Yeah.
I mean, anytime anyone said that to my girls, I was in their face correcting that. but you still hear it.
Yeah.
And everybody, knock it off. Don't say that to little girls.
Not literally, anymore. But, you know.
But stop. Yeah, because the conditioning is so pervasive. It's interesting to dig into that.
Yeah, so Crave is kind of like the fear of falling for the wrong person for the wrong reasons, in a way, you know? And then as I tried figuring out how to, you know, put my pitch deck together and like figuring out how to like approach people with it and whatnot, like I'm also writing another script, and that one is about trauma, and it's probably the most personal script that I've been writing because it's about a young Vietnamese American woman who is going to change her life and move to New York.
Where did you get that idea?
Yeah, right? She, when she gets on a plane, she gets food poisoning, and she gets revisited by childhood trauma, and like trauma that actually her parents experienced in the Vietnam, or after the Vietnam War as refugees. And it's obviously a story about anxiety, and so the metaphor of like food poisoning is also dealing with anxiety and like PTSD that has passed on from generations, because apparently a trauma is actually can get into like your genes, like it transfers over.
It gets in your DNA.
It gets into DNA, and also it like it's not only obviously not in your blood, but it's also like how you're raised and everything. And you can't blame like, you know, what happens to, you know, your parent, like my parents or whoever, or any parent, you know, that whatever happened to them in another country or whatnot.
Are your parents from Vietnam?
Yeah, so my parents are from Vietnam.
And when did they come?
They came after the Vietnam War in 1978.
One of those airlifts? Or was it a while after?
It was, I think, the second or third round. Yeah, they're ethnically Chinese, and so after the war, they were threatened to leave because they weren't considered citizens, like Vietnamese citizens. Because even though they were born there, like they were even living there. They were segregated schools. Like if you're ethnically Chinese, you go to this school. You can't work for the government. You can't.
You can't be a full citizen.
Exactly. And so, like after the Vietnam War, they try to be more nationalist, and they threatened the Chinese to leave. And so so they basically like went on boats, and then they overnight, usually like sneaking through the night, and they would go wherever it takes them in terms of like, okay, I hear Hong Kong has refugee camps, and my mom ended up in Macau. My dad's family went to Hong Kong as refugees. And
were they together before they left?
No, they met later. But like they were both like, they have a similar background, that they're from Vietnam and both ethnically Chinese. But yeah, they were refugees, and they eventually they had to apply to go in America, and luckily there was family already who went to America, so they got sponsored to go over.
Separately,
and
then where did they meet?
They met in Utah in like a vocational school.
As you do.
Yeah. So I had family in LA. Like my mom's family eventually were sponsored and lived in LA, and then my dad's family went to San Francisco.
But they met in Utah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. What were they doing in Utah?
They went to vocational school. They went they were just studying. Yeah, I don't know.
They meet each other in Utah, and we're like, we have a lot in common.
Yeah.
How
You're
crazy.
Chinese too,
Wow.
Yeah. So in terms of my script, so I'm
Oh,
developing.
right.
Yeah.
Tell us about this fictional script.
Yeah. So I'm developing this script, and it's about a young Vietnamese woman who tries to, takes the next chapter in her life, trying to move from LA to New York, and she gets food poisoning, and she, through this suffering, she is revisited by like her childhood trauma, and also the trauma that her parents experienced during the Vietnam War.
So she had her own trauma in addition to her parents' trauma?
Yeah, so her trauma is mostly like, I guess it's kind of like a stereotypical like Asian family where the parents are just kind of like put a lot of pressure on her to be perfect, basically, and just like hearing the voices of like her parents really being hard on her and stuff like that. And then the trauma of like spoiler alert, like the trauma of like experiencing what happens on the boats and as refugees. So I don't want to give out too much away.
Don't give it all away.
Yeah,
but
because that was basically, I'm still writing it. Yeah.
Wow, so interesting and so layered and so timely.
Yeah.
Is there something with, like we're having this national conversation about refugees right now. Does that have anything to do with it?
No, I think I just wanted to talk about mental health in terms of Asian American communities. Because there's... It's kind of like, you see in Fresh Off the Boat, too, about, like, this tiger mom kind of thing, and it's, like, the fun spin of it or whatever. But the realities of it, it's not that fun. Sometimes it's good to look back and laugh at it, and I'm very glad that, I don't live through that anymore. But then it's like...
Is it, like, living in two opposing cultures at the same time?
Yes, it's about, living two different cultures. It's a lot of miscommunication, I feel, too. Like, not trying to understand each other, not only because of the language, but it's also about, like, situations. Like, I will never know what it's like to live in a wartime.
Right. Yeah. And you're growing up in an American high school.
Yeah.
Like, that couldn't be any more different.
Yeah. A friend made this joke where I was frustrated one time. I was like, why are all Asian moms crazy? And she's like, maybe 4 out of 5. And then our other friend was there, and she's like, what are you guys talking about? But she was also Asian, but her mom was...
Did she have the one?
She's probably the one of the 5. And it was, but her mom's more Americanized. All our other moms are more Asian. And I guess, like, the idea is, like there's not a trend, but just kind of, like, I guess, like, in terms of my script, it's the fear of making your parents' mistakes. You're remaking your parents' mistakes. And, and sometimes with our parents having such hard times in, like, war or even just culture, like, Chinese culture is very patriarchal in some sense, And it's about, basically progressing out of that in a way. But just at least in my film, I wanted to just throw it out there and see, there's always so many movies about the Vietnam War, but not the after effects of it, like 30 years down the line, after
And it's
effects.
rarely told from the Vietnamese perspective.
Yeah.
It's usually from the American soldier perspective.
Exactly, yeah. Like, there's not a lot of Asian American stories in general.
Yeah.
and like, or at least in mainstream. There are many, like, films that are out there, but it's just kind of like they're, unfortunately, not many people are talking about it. Only like recently with the Crazy Rich Asians, which I personally, I felt like
you can say it. You can say it.
Especially with Crazy Rich Asians, like, I just felt like it was too gaudy, and it was not really. It shouldn't be the main representation film of us. I felt Searching was more of the front line. It should have been the front line of our representation, because it was about like a family and like father who's looking for his daughter out of love. It doesn't have to do anything about being Asian. It's just kind of like, I'm just looking for my daughter. You know, that's how.
But when there's one film, it can't possibly be representative, right?
Right.
If that were one of 100 Asian stories we saw last year, it would have been like, great.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess like, with Crazy Rich Asians, just kind of, again, with the pampering of like, oh, like, this is us being like funny and like kind of thing. Like, we're very human. And then this is like, we have real human problems, and it's not like, I still went to watch it. I still like, support it, because it is, there are topics within it that is very, is specific to being Asian in terms of like the mother and the mother-in-law relationship, and the mother and daughter relationship as well. So I guess like I still support Crazy Rich Asians in the way that they were able to break the glass and like we say, hey, we're here, we exist, kind of thing, But in terms of like now I just want more, I guess, authentic, deeper like films that can be put like in the surface so everyone else can see that how.
Now can we have more, please?
Yeah. And in terms of searching, again, it's just kind of, it isn't about just being Asian. It was just like about a father looking for his daughter, and just the family happens to be Asian, and I feel, I guess, like that type of, I guess, simulation in a way is just kind of like helps people to understand, like, oh, like, like have more empathy in terms of that, like of a normal problem, kind of, not a normal problem, but like something that everyone can relate, rather than you can't relate that, we're crazy rich and stuff like that, and I gotta impress my, or I'm poor and I'm gonna impress my rich God.
Isn't it kind of nuts that we're still only just here? Like, like growing up, did you see many Asians on screen or stories?
Yes and no. I mean, I grew up a lot with Asian cinema. Like I love Stephen Chow, and he's like basically the Adam Sandler of Hong Kong. And I loved like Jackie Chan. Like I followed a lot of like Hong Kong movies.
And there was that string of Amy Tan movies, I want to say in the 80s.
Yeah.
I can't remember a single title off the top of my head.
Well, Joy Luck Club.
Yeah, that was one.
Yeah. There was a lot of Asian American movies, but it just wasn't like, again, like, I guess widely advertised. Like I have to search for it, kind of thing. Like I studied like Asian American cinema in class, like in college, and I had to like really dive for it, because there's all only indies, and like there weren't a lot growing up, and I basically kind of like fell upon like what's happening in Asia in a way.
Because you expected there would be Asian movies, Asian stories set in Asia. Are there many like Asian American stories, which has got to be different? Yeah, right.
Yeah, they're a good handful. I really like Red Doors, and White Frog is one of my favorites too. But again, it's just not popularized, and like I feel maybe because. Like when you make an Asian American film, like they kind of you think it's just made only for other Asian Americans, but other people, can watch it too, or just not even that, but it's not.
I'd love it if we had the expectation that people can relate to other people's stories, no matter what they look like. I wish we could get there as a culture.
Yeah, rather than just like, oh, well, they're Asian American. It's like, okay, well, that's.
I won't watch that. That has nothing to do with me.
I think that's one thing great about Fresh Off the Boat, because like a lot of like non-Asian people like that show a lot too, because it is about like immigrant families. And another great show is Kim's Convenience, and that it's the Canadian show. Have you heard of it? Mm-mm. So that one's about like a Korean like immigrant family who owns a convenience store, and it's just a series of awkward like moments and misunderstandings as well, not only about language, but also just like situational like misleadings, I guess. And then they just led to one misunderstanding to another misunderstanding, and then all that stuff. Yeah, it's really good. And then that is also like liked by multiple people. Like you don't see it as just Asian. It's kind of like, oh, like it's they actually see it as more of a Canadian show in a way, because everyone's trying to be polite, but then they're trying to like,
because they're trying to be polite.
Like half the time, yeah.
That's Canada.
Yeah.
What advice, I kind of want to ask you, what do your parents think of you doing this rather than being a lawyer?
So at first, I think they were mostly concerned about my survival in terms of like, being financially stable. I think they were just mostly concerned about my survival. They also thought about the possibility of it, because back in the day, it's like, well, you're a woman and you're going to be a director. I mean, like, how many women directors are there, like, and so there's that too. It's like, maybe you should be a lawyer because, you're stronger that way or something. You have more power. People are always looking for lawyers and stuff like that.
Lots of female lawyers.
Yeah, there's plenty. During that time, though, when I did graduate, there was a surplus of lawyers, and there were a lot of unemployed lawyers at the time, so that was a good thing I didn't do that.
Man.
And the one I did intern at a nonprofit, and the lawyers there were they're like working for very low wages. Like they're like, because it's based off of communities, like donations and stuff like that.
Yeah, they were not paying their school debt.
They at the time, minimum wage was $10 in San Francisco, and those lawyers are making $13 an hour.
Oh my god!
Yeah. And they're like benefiting like the low income people and stuff like that too. But so they're like, they're struggling, and I'm like, oh my god, like, but if they're struggling as lawyers, and I wanted to be like them, like, I might as well just struggle in film.
Right. Because the lawyers are broke. There's no hope for any of us.
Yeah. I mean, like, the thing is, I didn't want to be a corporate lawyer. Mm-hmm. Like, I definitely don't want to be. Like, I wanted to help people. I wanted to make an impact in people, But I guess the cost of that is a paycheck or, like, a good paycheck. So
Michelle Obama will tell you all about it in her book. It's not easy.
Yeah. So, like, if I were to just go through all that stress and, like, being broke, it's like I might as well just do a film anyway.
Yeah.
So, like, for a long time, my parents weren't really supportive about it, and, like, but it's not like they had a choice. It's kind of like, well, it's a run on jokes. Like, well, at least you're not doing drugs, so I might as well help you with some money. And I was like, thanks,
and the
Dad.
bar gets lower and lower.
Like, thanks. Yeah, great. I work really hard.
That's funny.
Yeah.
All right, what advice do you have for women who are just thinking about starting out?
I guess try not to be perfect all the time,
Yes.
Like, that was a thing that I did want to say. The hardest thing about being an artist and a woman at the same time, we are taught that we're always never enough, or like we're always like, everything needs to be perfect or whatever like that. And
don't try until you know it's going to be perfect.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like, don't try to be perfect. Just keep trying and failing and all that stuff, because like we'll never learn unless we go through it.
Great advice.
Yeah. Yeah, especially, women are trained to always be perfect and like, and also do everything at the same time.
Right.
Do
everything and be perfect.
Yeah, and smile.
And look pretty while you're doing it.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta be pretty, you gotta be smart, you gotta...
And you gotta have great hair.
Yeah. So it's like, it's okay to not be perfect. It's okay that you can't do everything either. I still want to do everything, but I'm doing one thing at a time. And I think that's okay. And
you will get it all done.
Yeah. And I guess another thing too is just also not stop focusing on age.
Yes.
Yeah, because I feel like we are trained to like, okay, when you're 35, you're like useless. Like in China, if you're not married by 25, you are... when you're over 25 and not married, there's a term called shangnu, and it's called leftover women.
I just read that article this morning.
Yeah.
Leftover women.
Yeah. So it's called leftover women. Yeah, it's awful. You can't just. It's not like we're leftovers because after we're 25, like we do so many other things,
It's so ridiculous. Did you read the article I did where like companies will give women extra time off to date because it's so important?
No, I didn't read that. No, I learned about it in actually a Shiseido advertisement where it was they were like interviewing a bunch of women who are shangnus, and then like some women would focus on their careers, and like even they interviewed their parents. It's like, well, maybe my daughter's just not pretty enough, and that's why they got married. And I'm like, she's right there.
She can hear
next
you.
to you. Yeah. And it was a thing where they have marketplaces and stuff like that, trying to like market their kids out. There's actually a article that just came out just today about this Asian woman who's like Baltimore police are looking for her because she's been harassing other women to date her son. So it's a thing.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Join that family.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so like we're all like obsessed with age and youth and all that stuff, and it's just like I don't know, maybe it's easier for me to say because Asian don't raisin.
I have not heard that one. That's funny.
But like it's kind of like like at any age you could start something, really. Like you're just putting that barrier around yourself, you know. I think another thing that I guess the regret is like when I was like even 24, I was like, oh my God, I'm so old, blah, blah, I can't do this or whatever, you know. And and you know, I realized like I'm putting the barriers around myself. It's not like, you know, no one's stopping me from doing this stuff, and it's okay. Like I should be like
expire.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, I should have made like X amount of short films by now. I should have made a feature by like this age by now. And I'm like, no, like I can't. You know, there's other priorities.
Don't shit on yourself.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
What did I not ask you about that I should have asked you about?
One thing about filmmaking is like when you shoot these films and then you screen it, there's like this huge time that happens. Like when I shot Rule of Threes, it was like 2015. It's like 2019 now, and I look back at it. Of course, I'm like, I ended up like, you know, beating myself up about all these mistakes I made and everything. I still cringe watching it. Actually, I still cringed when I watched it in film festivals and I was like have like a little bit of panic attacks when I was watching it because I see all those mistakes and like it's but I have to.
No one else is watching it like that.
Of course, no one else is watching like that.
Yeah.
And then but like it's kind of like, well, one, it's like already like at the time that was the best I could do. You know, and it's also a piece of me that is very important. You know, it's
like a snapshot in time.
Yeah, a snapshot in my time of my life. Maybe it wasn't a great time of my life, but it's just like that is still a piece of me that I should be proud of. You know,
and you did it. You made a short film and you got into festivals.
Yeah,
that's huge.
Yeah. So another thing to tell. Like, you know, other feature women filmmakers or young filmmakers is that, you know, you just gotta like, believe in that piece of yourself, you know, no matter if it's awful or it doesn't matter, you know, but it is a piece of you that as a lesson it's a piece of you and it's a learning lesson as well. And yes, move on, but like it, you know, it's still a part of you that's important. Like why go through all that stress and everything to go, you know, to make that film.
Because you did it, which is a huge accomplishment.
Yeah, and it means a lot to you to make this film. So
and you're only going to get better.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Yeah.
You've been listening to The Other 50%, a herstory of Hollywood. I'm Julie Harris Walker. I'd like to thank TL Quach for sharing her story. And special thanks to Jay Rowe, Danny Rosner, and Allison McQuaid for the music. Please find us on your favorite podcast provider and leave a review. And of course, on our website, theother50%.com, all spelled out in letters, for added features, bios of our guests, and the merch. You can also follow us on all the social media platforms. And go subscribe to catchabreakpodcast.com. Thanks for listening. See you next time.